We've been just dealt a whole bunch of BS about dieting and what works and what doesn't work. And we stay stuck in this loop of never being enough, never doing it right, trying to get it right. I'm going to, dig in and I'm going to do it right this time. And we judge ourselves and we berate ourselves and we criticize ourselves. And we just keep ourselves in this lower level loop of living. And the opportunity to move out of that comes from changing your biochemistry.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode on Your Health is Your Greatest Wealth. I am so excited to have my guest, Marcy Luna, here with us today. And Marcy Luna is such an incredible individual. The one thing I did want to tell you about her is that she is an exercise physiologist specializing in nutrition and psychology. And so with that today, Marcy, take it away. I know you also specialize in the physiology of stress. Tell us how you got into that realm and what we can do to help lower our stress.
Yeah. Stress is kind of the thing that's always there. And I know that the risk of when we talk about stress is that people dismiss it because it feels like it's not something in our control. And so my real work is to identify and help other people identify the things that we can do and how they actually impact our bodies at the cellular level, which is what physiology, kind of a big word, but that's all it means is what's happening in our bodies at a physiological level. So I've been a fitness professional since 1993, so for a really long time. I started when I was in college, so I just aged myself. But teaching fitness, I recognized very quickly was an avenue for people to access something much bigger about their lives. My senior year of college, I was walking across campus about the end of the year, and this woman came running across campus like, Marcy, Marcy, I just had to find you and say thank you. And her name was Donna. She took my faculty staff fitness class. I didn't talk to her very much. She was in her, I don't know, at that time it seemed really old, but 50s, 60s. And she said, "You've changed my life." And so here I was, 22 years old, and this woman just told me that I changed her life. And I said, "Oh my gosh, like how? Like what's going on?" And she said, "I started taking your classes at the beginning of the year. I was overweight. I was stressed out. My marriage wasn't going well. And I decided I needed to get in shape. And because you kept motivating me to come to class, I kept coming. And because I kept coming, I started feeling better. My husband and I had drifted apart. We weren't doing very much together anymore. And as I started having more energy, I started getting him off the couch. And we've reconnected in a way that we haven't connected in years. I've lost 20 pounds and I'm feeling amazing. And I just want to say thank you." So that started me, like, I already knew I loved working in fitness and helping people with this, but to understand the complexity of her life and how this one access point changed so many things meant that I had an opportunity to be like a transformation for people that they don't even realize how many things are going to transform through this one thing. So that's what started me on my journey, understanding so much about how the habits that we have, the way that we treat our bodies, what we do, what we think, how that all impacts our bodies at the cellular level and impacts our mood, our focus, our productivity, our well-being, definitely our health. And it's not accidental. It's when we can take our power back, it's so much more exciting to wake up and know you have power. And so my big mission is to help people do that. So I went on to get my master's degree in exercise science, nutrition, and the psychology of eating behavior. And I've worked as a professor at a local university, and I created a class on the physiology of stress and how these different lifestyle factors that we either do or don't partake in change our physiology to change our stress. So, I think there's a lot of power in the habits that we have, and we can dismiss that and just kind of fall victim to feeling the same way I felt yesterday and allowing the outside world to dictate how we feel today. It's a really powerful sort of reframe for ourselves to see it as taking our power back instead of another thing on the to-do list. So I'm very passionate about this work. About 10 years ago is when I started really identifying like, what is this? Like, why do I have eczema on my hands? And people say it's because of stress. I had a horrible case of eczema and I couldn't get rid of it. I went to so many doctors, creams, the whole thing. And at the time, I was in a pretty tense marriage and that ended and my eczema disappeared. And I was like, I need to understand this better. Like, what is the thing physiologically, because that's how I think, that stress does that changes our bodies to do things like this. I didn't want to just, it was some random event. I wanted to understand it. And so that's when I really started diving into understanding the science of stress and how these different variables really affect us. And there's Micah.
The cameo appearance.
Yeah. So, my big premise is that we wake up in a day, and let's say that we're like a lot of people, we're undernourished, overfed, underhydrated, underslept, disconnected, and we wake up at like a 7 or an 8 out of 10 on the stress scale, and then we check our email. It's like, what is happening to this stress load in our bodies that we're trying so hard to manage from like with a full bucket of stress? Like, it's just impossible. And we're wondering why we have record numbers of suicides, high anxiety, high depression. There's a lot of challenges that we face that we have more power over than I think we give ourselves credit for. And so my real desire is to educate people about how the things we do affects our stress physiology so we have more capacity to handle all this stuff that comes at us during the day.
Marcy, I love so much about what you said, including my vision is very aligned that I too feel there is such a need to empower people with their own health rather than just handing it over blindly to others, including I think many of us in the past did that with doctors and just having blind faith that they knew our bodies better than we knew our own bodies. And so I'm loving that transition where it's really about empowering ourselves to know our bodies better than anyone else. Obviously, recruiting outside help when necessary, but really be in tune with your own body. And you realizing that you had eczema, and then when the stress went away, that went away. There are so many different veins that I can take so much of what you said in a different direction. What I'm going to hone in on is you mentioned the power of transformation and the power of habit, and help us understand there is so much out in the world that's so accessible with knowledge, with the internet. And yet somehow, even though that knowledge is accessible to so many, people aren't acting on that knowledge. So how does the psychology of behavior help you guide clients to, it's not just good to know something, you have to do something?
Yes. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. And it's so true. Because it's easy to consume information. It's easy to consume stuff. It's easy to know stuff. And I honestly think a lot of times consuming and knowing gets us in this cycle of it's like over there instead of right here. And the real risk a lot of us face is we've heard something before. Let's say exercise.
Mhm.
We probably all know that exercise is a good idea. It's going to help us, but it's in the doing. What is the thing that is keeping me from the doing? And, I really believe that it's not all the reasons people give, which is time. I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. It's some kind of resource. But the truth is, if you had the energy and you felt like it, you would. And and there's this idea that we're supposed to feel like it before we start. And I think one of the most powerful things that people can shift is the awareness that your body is made to stay comfortable. Like you're protecting a state of comfort versus leaning into it to a state of discomfort. So nobody is, I shouldn't say nobody. It's unusual to be just, I want to go from being comfortable and cozy in my bed to getting up and putting on some shoes and going running. Like that's not, that's the step we get stuck in. So I have a thing called, for this specific example, and you could apply it to a lot of things, but I call it skipping. When I'm thinking about doing a workout, and I don't feel like it. If I'm honest, if I focus on, do I feel like it? Do I not feel like it? I don't feel like it. I really don't. And I've been teaching fitness for over 30 years, but I don't feel like it. So what I focus on is skipping to the end. So I'm not allowing myself to get stuck in the trough of, I don't feel like it, because then I'm stuck. But I skip to the end, like 30 minutes from now, 20 minutes from now, I'll be done. I would be done with my workout, and this is how I'd feel. And I focus on how I'm going to feel when I'm done. I'm going to feel this way, and then I have all day to live into that. And it's like I stay focused on, I skip the trough if I don't feel like it, and I skip to the end while I put my shoes on, while I'm getting ready. I just get in motion, forcing myself not to focus on I don't feel like it. And that might sound like really overthinking something, but these are the places that I think the pockets, I call them little pockets that we have to focus on, that we tend to dismiss. And instead we focus on, I don't feel like it. So it's being willing to get uncomfortable in order to have more comfort. Um, when I teach exercise classes, I'm forever explaining like all the magic that's happening in our bodies. You know, our muscles are an endocrine organ, and what that means is your muscles actually release hormones to your brain. So while you are exercising, and really while you're flexing your muscles, you could sit here and flex your muscles, and you would start releasing chemicals to your brain, chemical messengers. And some of those, one of them is called irisin, and they've dubbed it the hormone of hope because the hormone of hope, right? Like who doesn't need hope? Because it amplifies your brain's reception to what's possible, like feeling better. And when you understand that while you're exercising, this is actually a very critical piece to understand. I think it just takes things to the next level. While you are exercising, depending on how you are thinking about your exercise, will change and shape the results you get from it.
Marcy, there's so much truth to what you said. I know for those of us that have crossed that threshold where it's about having the end in mind
Mhm.
and how going to feel at the end of my workout. I mean, if I juxtapose it against, yes, I don't want to do it, but how will the version of Blanca that sat on her couch and didn't go anywhere, didn't do anything, versus the Blanca that put her clothes on in the middle of winter, went on that run, and the person I am and how I feel about myself and my whole perspective and outlook on life is so much more optimistic than the Blanca that just starts all that negative self-talk, all those limiting beliefs, all the yes, internalized self-loathing, which is never good no matter what, but all those negative voices in your mind. So it is so much a mindset game that I think some of us have again crossed that threshold. For those individuals starting that haven't even started, I should actually say, that are challenged with that negative self-talk, with that mind game, that they, don't see themselves even stepping into the gym because they have so much internal limiting beliefs. What would you say to them to just get them started? It is that person that can't even get out the door. They're not even putting the sneakers on yet.
Yes, great question. And I think there are a couple of things to understand. One is to understand the science of your body. When you are first starting exercise, this actually recently happened to me. I had to take time off because I was injured, and then I went back to exercise and it felt horrible. Like when you're exercising all the time, it's like, that like, whoo, that was hard. That's the goal. But when you're first starting out, there's no whoo. There's just a like, oh, this just feels bad. And when you can understand that that is your nervous system, your nervous system has not wired itself up to do what you're demanding of it. But because of that, and it feels really bad. I actually am more in touch with how that feels than I have been in a long time. but it doesn't feel good and it doesn't make you want to do it again. You just remember that it felt bad or you anticipate it's going to feel bad. If you understand that if you stick with it, you will get past that bad feeling and it will get better. When things feel painful or bad, there's something in us biologically that we think it's going to last forever. You know, like when you're in a dark moment, it doesn't feel like it's going to pass. But when so you have to think beyond it and recognize that it will pass and it will get better. And that includes in this adaptation to exercise. But if you stop before you create that transformation of your nervous system, you're going to forever be starting and you're always going to feel bad. It's that when I do it once and then I don't do it again for 3 more weeks because I didn't feel like it. And then I try again and then I do it 3 times and then I stop. That's where you just stay stuck in the bad feeling. So if you understand how your body works physiologically, I think it's easier to move past the really hard stuff and get to the better stuff.
That is so true. And I wanted to also touch back on something else that you said, Marcy. It was the psychology of eating. Can you expand a little bit on that and how that relates to the physiology of stress and the things that keep us stuck?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm just gonna have to rein this in a little bit because I'm very passionate about it. We've been just dealt a whole bunch of BS about dieting and what works and what doesn't work. And we stay stuck in this loop of never being enough, never doing it right, trying to get it right. I'm going to, dig in and I'm going to do it right this time. And we judge ourselves and we berate ourselves and we criticize ourselves. And we just keep ourselves in this lower level loop of living. And the opportunity to move out of that comes from changing your biochemistry. It doesn't start with counting things, counting macros, counting calories. I'm not dismissing the value of any of that. So whatever that is for you, but you can't count how many calories you're burning very well because it's going to depend on a lot of things. How much muscle mass do you have? How well did you sleep? What are you eating? How well are you breathing? Do you fidget during the day? There's so many variables that go into the calories out that if we can just push that aside and improve your biochemistry, the eating is so much easier to take care of because you're not fighting uphill. For example, when you do not get enough sleep, and I know sleep is a whole nother podcast, but when we're underslept, you're going to wake up with more dysregulated cortisol. Cortisol is your primary stress hormone. And when we wake up, we're supposed to have cortisol being the highest of the day. It's kind of like what wakes you up. So that's correct. And then it comes down. The problem we have is that cortisol should go up and then come down. And then something happens during the day, you get stressed, and then it comes down. And then, up, down, up, down. And in the evening to go to bed, cortisol needs to be low so we can release melatonin to go to sleep. Well, when we are underslept, those days when you haven't had enough sleep and you have an impossible time keeping your face out of the pantry? That is because your appetite hormones, leptin and ghrelin, are impacted by a lack of sleep. So here we are, not sleeping enough. I'm on a diet. I'm trying to do it right. My appetite hormones are setting me up for being hungrier and storing more calories. That's ghrelin. We want our appetite hormones to make us less hungry and burn more calories. That's leptin. So with dysregulated appetite hormones, we're at a total disadvantage, but your body is just trying to survive. Your body is just trying to keep you safe. So when we can change our biochemistry, we have an easier time making good choices. We have an easier time doing the things that we want to do to live the life we want to have. So that's one piece, right? Is changing your biochemistry to make your life better. And it is the boring habits like sleeping, maybe meditating, some kind of calming practice, exercise, hydration. Those are the things, if we can pick one of those to dial in, you're going to start rewiring your body to just feel better. And, one of my taglines is feeling better feels better. So it's not always like it's just so hard. I hate it. It's this thing I have to do. Do you want to feel better? And the second piece that you talked about was around identity. So if you're identifying yourself as somebody who doesn't exercise, who hates whatever, healthy food, if you're identifying yourself with all the knots, like that stuff, I'm not a this, then you're really creating what's possible for yourself, and it's all very limiting. So if you can start practicing thinking about what would the healthy, happy, fit version of me feel like? What would I do? What would I wear? What would I focus on? Like, how would my life be if I magically woke up tomorrow morning feeling happy, fit, and healthy? And then you start identifying yourself with that version of you. I mean, if you don't want to feel happy, fit, or healthy, then that would be hard. But, if we're talking about health is your greatest wealth, I would think happy, fit, and healthy would be an identity to embody. So, what is that for you? How does that version of you think? So, if we start transforming our thought process into, instead of resisting, because we don't feel like it, it's transforming how we think so that we desire things that actually make us feel good. Because at the cellular level, your body does want the kale. It really does. And so if you start thinking better, you can make choices that are easier. And I think that that's a magic switch to flip is like, how does that version of me think? Not the old story of what's gone on in the past that's kept me where I am. If you want to transform, you have to kind of launch yourself up to something different, something better. And it doesn't have to be just so hard. It can actually feel really good. Like what makes me feel good? And I have so many stories of those kinds of transformations.
Marcy, and I'm really glad we're having this conversation just about your own thought process. I know for me, the conversation now is if a workout didn't go the way I wanted, or if a meal didn't go the way I wanted, my next thought is how can I best get myself back on track? Whereas my younger version of myself would say, oh, well, I already messed up, or oh, I already wrecked my diet. So I've completely lost it. So I might as well keep going versus putting myself on that corrective path. That can even include not just your relationship with food, but with exercise. Oh, I blew my streak. I messed it up. I might as well stop now. Versus, no one is looking for perfection. You're just trying to do things more right than not. So what is the next corrective action to get you back on that better path, that better goal for the vision you hold of yourself, and how can you anchor into that? And I love that you brought this as a conversation of identity because it really is how you think of yourself and where you view yourself going with that present self and that future self. So thank you for that. I have so many things I want to ask you. I guess I also wanted to just go a little deeper into the cellular level. For those that maybe don't understand the physiology, the biology of what you're referring to at the cellular level, can you give us a novice explanation?
Yeah. Well, of which thing specifically? If it's about the stress and then exercise, that is the stress pathway in our bodies is our brains register something as stressful. Like we're not necessarily aware of it. And then we release hormones. It's the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. But the adrenal glands wind up releasing cortisol. That is incredibly handy when you are in a threatening situation. We all know how that, like adrenaline, how that feels. That causes amazing things to happen. It can help us focus. It can help us move fast. It can help us do things. But we've got to let that come down, right? We've got to have the recovery period. And this is true with exercise as well. Exercise actually generates the whole stress response. Adrenaline goes up, blood pressure goes up, your heart rate goes up. You create stress during exercise. And then when you're finished, you relax, like everything calms down. So the point in that arc of stress physiology is to allow ourselves to get stress. Like you're supposed to have stress in life. As a matter of fact, there was a fascinating sort of experiment that happened in the 90s in the biodome, the biosphere that was in Arizona. They grew, they created a whole world. Actually, they were trying to create a whole climate and all in this biodome. And they planted trees, and these trees grew and they looked perfectly healthy. They got to a certain height and they just fell over. And so they were trying to figure out what on earth happened. And what they realized was the trees didn't have any wind in the biodome. They didn't have any stress. And without any stress, they couldn't develop deeper roots. They
Mm.
couldn't develop strength to withstand the height. And I think it's a beautiful example about how like we need stress. I might have a, tagline around stressing less, but we need the stress. We just need to recover from the stress. And when you exercise, you are generating this resilience. Like you're increasing your capacity to handle stress in life. So exercise doesn't have to just become the thing I'm supposed to do and I don't feel like doing. It becomes a gateway to more things in your life. You actually have, when you exercise, one of the physiological responses is that you regulate those same appetite hormones I was talking about. So it tends to be when you exercise, you have an easier time regulating your appetite. So it's not so hard to eat well. And those are some of the biochemistry changes that happen when you are dehydrated or underhydrated. You don't have to be like you just ran a marathon in the desert, high dehydrated, but just you don't drink enough water. Your body is going to release some of those stress hormones and stress responses in order to regulate your body fluid balance because it's harder to do so. So when we tax our system more by not taking care of ourselves, we create at the cellular level more stress. And then everything feels harder. So, it's a lot of things that I'm talking about, like your sleep and water and exercise and all. And so it can feel sort of like, I don't know where to start. I can't do all of that at once. And you just pick one thing, it opens the door to so many things. Like I talked about with Donna, my students in my college class have to pick a behavior change project. They pick one behavior they're going to change for 8 weeks, and they track that behavior and they track an outcome. And typically, people pick stuff like drinking water, which is one that fascinates me because very consistently they have the same results. And this is over like 10 years of teaching this class, but it always feels like they're making it up. They're like, I can focus better. My skin is clear. I'm in a better mood. It's like the list of things is so big from just hydrating better. And, when we talk about sleep or exercise, when you exercise better, the first thing clients would say to me is that they slept better immediately. Like weight loss may be a longer term project, but when you exercise and you sleep better, you start feeling better. You start feeling better. You start doing more. You start doing more, and then you sleep better. And then it's just, so you could just pick one thing that starts to change the physiology on the inside. And then you also start to change your psychology because you're feeling better. You can access more. So I don't know if that helped, but if there's a more specific example, I can go into.
You know, it did. Thank you, Marcy. And what it does for me, for example, when you said that exercising is a gateway for so many different things, I know for me, my best way to handle stress or work through problems is running. And for me, I'm at a point where it's a meditative experience. It's not just exercise. Something else happens to me physiologically where I get better at problem solving. I think of more solutions because somehow some neural pathway for creativity
Yep.
opens. And I know for me, and I'm not an expert in the field, but I've always been fascinated with neuroplasticity since I
Mhm.
learned about it and just rewiring your own brain. And for me, that is what exercising does for me. It helps me become more creative and think of solutions that if I were just on my couch sitting down watching TV, I most likely would not have. And
Absolutely.
I don't know what it is about the space that's created when I'm out there with my own physiology in nature, which is a big part of how I exercise and how it helps me get into a meditative space. But just the more creativity, the brain cells that are working that I probably didn't know I had, um, all of that for me are all the hidden benefits. And to me, the looking better because I'm healthier is a byproduct, but it's really how you mentioned how it makes me feel. That is the first thing I always go after when I'm not in a good mood and I go out for a workout. It's like, okay, I need to do something that's going to make me feel better. And that's always my starting point. And that's always the outcome I'm looking for to change the way I feel about something or to heighten the way I'm feeling. If I'm in a good mood, I want to feel in a greater mood. So it's not always about going from bad to good, but going from good to great.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. And it's so true. Like what you're talking about is just the byproduct, and I could walk you through all the science of it, but what really matters is the awareness that it's possible to feel better. And I think what you spoke to earlier really matters, which is that when you're first starting out and in different phases of life, like it can feel really bad. And so it's like wanting to feel good exercising. Sometimes that just means picking something different to do. What if you're not running, but you just get yourself out the door to move and go for a walk? There's a really popular, like, it's just a 10-minute rule. Like, just no matter how you feel, just start. And for 10 minutes, see how you feel. And if you don't feel good after 10 minutes, stop. But if once you get going, that's where your motivation to keep going comes from. It's hard to go from sitting still to moving. It's easier to go from moving to continuing moving. So a lot of times it's just what's the smallest step I can take to just start moving. And you actually you rewire your brain. But I want to be sure that I drop in this one because it's kind of magic. And it's when you're doing something that feels hard, like even if it's just starting exercise, I'm putting shoes on, I'm walking out the door. My door's over there. That's why I keep looking at it. Um, walking out the door. If I start thinking positively about what I'm doing, which is why I think it's so helpful to know just a little bit of the science of what's happening in your body when you exercise. So I'm starting to move. I'm increasing my circulation. I'm getting better blood flow to my brain. I'm releasing some of my stress hormones. I'm amplifying my feel-good hormones. I am making my muscles stronger. I'm releasing stress. When you start thinking about the positive benefits of what you're doing, you actually start releasing more dopamine in your brain, which is the motivated to pursue something, motivated to do something. So if we can attach positive associations with the thing that we know we want to do, we aspire to wanting to do, even if we don't really want to do it, we're going to increase that arc of motivation. So instead of having all of the resistance critical, like, push you down thoughts happening, I don't feel like doing this, I hate this. When we think that way, we actually increase just the stress of the exercise and we don't get as many positive benefits, which is
Mm.
fascinating. There's some incredible studies about that. So the way we choose to think about the thing we're doing impacts our motivation to do it and the results from doing it. So, I don't think many people talk about that.
Oh, Marcy, you are so fascinating. I have not even brought up the fact that you're also a certified high performance coach. Oh my goodness. I want to be respectful of your time. I would definitely love to have you back as a return guest and dive in deeper into so many topics. I did want to give you the last part in this interview. Was there something that I did not know to ask you that you would like to share with our audience here today?
Oh my gosh. Well, how long do you have? Because
As much as you have.
yeah. Well, I think a really important thing for people to acknowledge is that you just have to start where you are. When I start talking about all this stuff, I am aware that it can feel overwhelming. And so the real work is to look at where you are and acknowledge it, even if it doesn't feel good to acknowledge it. So, Trent Shelton said once, you can't fix what you don't face. And I think that facing where you are is possibly the most courageous step to take for a lot of us because we try to dismiss it because it doesn't feel good. And if we can just face that and take one step towards something better, we change things. And that's really where the magic happens, is taking that first step towards something better. And then we start addressing deeper levels because you start peeling away layers. And that's where a lot of the high performance coaching comes in, because that is a lot of the mindset work. And how do we just keep creating a better and better feeling life with a better and better feeling body? And, my goal is to help people create the life they want in a body they love. And I absolutely know that it's possible.
Marcy, I have to bring up another topic because, oh my goodness, this is just incredible. Okay, so when you mentioned Trent Shelton, which is an influencer both you and I follow, mentioning that you can't fix what you don't face. And you also mentioned earlier your own personal journey where you got injured and then you had to go back to it. I know for me, and I'm being completely vulnerable here, a lot of what goes into my own psychology is my sense of ego. And I too, when I have sports injuries, and I get many, especially as I age, it is very humbling. Having to go back to baseline. You think you're here because you've done this work, and something throws you in for a loop. You get injured. In my case, I've been dealing with a shoulder injury since last spring. So running and doing weights at the gym have been a real challenge. So right now, just even exercising is a challenge, let alone trying to do training for any kind of event. But it is really humbling. And a lot of where I'm at is, you know what, I just have to honor where I'm at. And no, I'm not where I was this time last year. And I still have to stop that self comparison. I think that is my biggest devil. It's not even me comparing myself to other people, other runners. It's me comparing myself to where I was a year ago and thinking, oh, I was so much better. Oh, I was doing so much more. And none of that talk helps me. So I am constantly having to remind myself and telling myself, Blanca, stop it. Blanca, stop it. That does not help you. And just, being humble enough to give myself a state of grace and say, okay, you're here now. And no one's looking at you and saying, oh my gosh, she was like running so much faster last year. Why can't she run that distance anymore? Like all of these things of how I think people are judging me and comments people are making, none of that is real. And if it is, it doesn't matter. But just my own internal self talk about how I view myself and my own negative self talk is, I think, the biggest battle I fight.
I think you fight a battle that a lot of people fight. It is extremely common. Like, I mean, it's human nature. We have that internal battle, and that inner critic is what I call it. And it's sort of, how much are you going to give the megaphone to the inner critic? And I just want to offer for you, like the skipping thing, to skip over the battle and move right into, what would you rather think? How would you rather think about what you're doing today? How would you rather think? What would be a better feeling thought? Because if we can keep attaching better feeling thoughts to each other, it's like clutter on the counter, it attracts more clutter. So the negative thoughts attract more negative thoughts. And so we have to just kind of break away from it and decide. I really like working with clients to find, like, okay, what's the thought you want to think that you want to practice thinking? That isn't that isn't fighting the negative thought, but it's just a new thought. Like, let me just have a new thought. What's that thought? Today's the first day of something new for me. I'm going to do what my body is capable. I love myself and I'm taking care of myself to the best of my ability today. And that means walking instead of running. And I love that I can do this. And so then we're starting to turn it into gratitude with an easier path. instead of battling the old thoughts.
The thought I tell myself is I'm out here and I'm still doing it. I'm really working hard because it's an ongoing process. I can't say I've worked through it, but I'm working through not comparing myself to my previous self or even my future self. I'm just trying to be in the moment, and I do realize that there is a future self of me that is better, but I'm never going to get to that point if I don't work on my present self. And this is where I am right now, and I'm here and I'm still doing it, is what I tell myself.
Yes. Yes. And may you always be doing it. I just want to challenge you to upgrade that a little bit from like, I'm still doing it, which has a little bit of like, I don't know, little bit of from I'm still doing it to like, I'm getting better every day. Like, this is me getting better every day. Like, this is my new self I'm creating. Like, there's just a whole nother level of possibility from this day, from this moment, from this thing that I'm choosing to do that's in the positive.
So true. And Marcy, to that point, I think that's why we all need personal coaches and mentors, because sometimes it's just that little tweak in the way we think. And it's really hard to get that on your own. So thank you for being a mentor to so many others as a certified high performance coach. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here on another episode of Your Health is Your Greatest Wealth. And I wanted to share a tool that I make use of on the daily. It is an app called Growthday, and it was developed by this guy here, Brendon Burchard, who is actually also my mastermind coach, my mentor, my friend. And Growthday app has really helped me with mental clarity. It's helped me just up-level my life with more positive thoughts. There is just such a wealth of information with so many different mindset coaches such as Ed Milet, Anthony Trucks, Lori Harder, Trent Shelton, Natalie Ellis, just so many wonderful mentors, teachers that help me up-level my mindset, especially when I'm feeling stuck, when I need a different way of thinking. It's such a great resource for me to jump on the daily. And just have more life clarity, more life satisfaction, be more optimistic, and just help me when I'm just kind of feeling stuck up here and sometimes here, to just have a different way of thinking by others that have navigated those treacherous waters and have come to the other side and have also up-leveled their life with better thoughts that serve them better. We can all use a little bit of that, just reframing our thoughts and thinking more positive ones that serve us in a better way. So I have attached the link in the description below. If you are ready to up-level your life by growing personally, professionally, through mindset and personal development work, then this app is for you. Click on the link below. Is there anything else you would like to add today? And by the way, I would love you back as a guest.
Yeah. Well, I would love to come back as a guest. So I just really appreciate the time and the conversation. I mean, this is my passion and my purpose in my life's work. And I want so much for people to feel like everything is possible. And the more we get to have conversation about it, the more we get to experience that together. And that connection is so vital. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Marcy. And with that, thank you everyone for joining us on another episode of Your Health is Your Greatest Wealth. I hope you learned something new today. And if you did, please share with others. Please like, please subscribe. Thank you again.